A long time ago, I used to have a YouTube channel. At one point, almost 500 subscribers. I'm always questioning everything. I have been doing that since I was just a child, and it's still something I do today. I am, in fact, a proud conspiracy theorist. So in 2011, I moved from the city to a small town. And during the time that I lived there, all of my spiritual beliefs and all of it's so, I don't want to call it new age, but that's what it was. I was very much into that sort of line of thinking, and so by the time I'd moved out of there in 2017, I pretty much abandoned all of it. Even I was questioning some of the stuff that I was hearing back then. Spiritualists, for the most part, the spiritualists that I know, they're humble and they keep it to themselves. And you know what? They're honest people. They're good people. As I was living in this small town, I lost my friend of 30 years to a drug habit. He had a dark side that I really didn't know anything about. I felt betrayed at the time, and that's just one of the things. There was somebody else I know that went and with a friend of hers, they went to see a psychic, and the psychic convinced her friend that she had a curse put on her, and she's like, well, for $500 I can remove this curse. And the lady that the psychic told this to, she was scared for like a week. I had a neighbor that professed to see ghosts and spirits, and in my opinion, she didn't see anything at all. I think what she was seeing, she had a lot of health problems, and she had a lot of things to deal with, a lot on her plate. She was an elderly lady. The house that she lived in was the house that her parents had also lived in, and her uh, deceased husband and her had lived in. In fact, at this point, he'd been deceased for, I think, 10 or 15 years. In terms of her seeing ghosts, which I won't get into for the sake of time, I only have about 15 minutes here because this is YouTube. I think what she was seeing was she was actually seeing perhaps the life that she dreamed about and desired for herself. The ghost of the little boy that she saw, I think, was a representation of her son. Um, her deceased husband, and the young lady that she saw was her and her husband. I think subconsciously she was projecting or seeing these kinds of projections, but because of these filters, she may have been interpreting it as something supernatural, which I don't believe it was, not for a second. I felt sad for our neighbor, despite the fact that she ended up being quite rude towards my parents and myself at the latter end of things. When we moved away, I did hear that she eventually sold the house and got out of there, and I was glad to hear it. She would have been in her 70s at this time, and so I was glad to hear it, and I hope for what it's worth, she found some peace and solace. And I used to share all these ideas, all these theories, and things about dreams I used to have and ideas about the planet Earth, environment, and extraterrestrials and stuff like that. And gradually I began to see through a lot of this spirituality, and I couldn't support it anymore. I couldn't put out information about it, or because I didn't want to mislead people. I didn't want to give people bullshit information. A lot of people, they claim to be spiritual or believing in this or that or the other thing. But I think a lot of people that say that actually they're spiritual as long as it suits their purposes. If it's uncomfortable or something's too difficult, or they're not spiritual anymore. They'll turn around and they'll call people names and they'll whatever else, right? They'll start a big ruckus. As long as it's a means to an end, that's the persona they're going to portray. There are those people that look for vulnerable people and they take advantage of them and they lie to them and they don't really care about how they feel or the consequences of something they might say or do. So I walked away from all that stuff. And I shut down my YouTube channel after, can't remember how many years it was. I started it in 2007 and I shut it down by 2016. So was it 9 years? I couldn't do it anymore. I'll give you an example of a fraud. When I was younger, I read a lot of books. I was always asking questions about God and existential questions, and it's one of my favorite subjects, actually. The universe, aliens, the meaning of life, all that kind of stuff. So when I was younger, there were people in my family who were fans of Sylvia Browne. And I read a couple of her books. I don't really remember them that much. One of them was an autobiographical book. She talked about Francine and changing her name or her time in university, and I don't really remember too much about it. So one year I thought, well, for my mom's birthday, I'll get a I'll get a reading for her from Sylvia. That'll be a nice thing. And at the time, my mom was interested in that sort of thing, so I thought, well, this would be nice. So I inquired about the cost, and the short and skinny of it is for about 15 or 20 minutes at the time, Sylvia would give you a reading over the phone for $730. Are you kidding me? But of course, if you can't afford that, you can go to a relative of hers and they'll do it for $450. Wow, what a discount. So after that, I had no interest in Sylvia. And Sylvia Browne's legacy can be summed up in two words, I think. Amanda Berry. And that's all I'm going to say about Sylvia for now. I got back into gaming for a while. And I started streaming. I've been doing that for almost 5 years now, which is unbelievable. And it's, for the most part, it's have a wonderful and growing community and some really awesome friends who have always been supportive and encouraging. And thank you very much for that. And you know what? During the entire time I've been doing it, I've never really had any problem. I don't have problems with trolls. I don't, I don't have a problem with, hate raids or whatever you call them. I don't worry about that kind of stuff. I had one person come in there one time and use a racial slur, and I removed them. I didn't make a big deal out of it. I just quietly removed them. And so, with the way that things have been going the last few years in Canada, and I guess around the world, but I'll stick to Canada since that's where I hang my hat. I really want to do something. I and I don't know what else I can do. I'm frustrated, and I mean I wish I could get out there, and I wish I could protest, or I wish that I could organize some kind of community effort or something. The state of things, I'm hesitant to talk about this because all I would be doing would be editorializing, really. But I have been thinking about doing video essays or just I want to do something. I want to do something. I have the urge to stand and fight, to stand up and fight for what I think is right. And I think about doing essays, something like that, on this whole gender ideological nonsense, WEF nonsense. Even the word retarded, which for the record doesn't offend me. The word retarded doesn't offend me. I actually had a friend once and I lost a friend. I lost him as a friend because, and this was somebody I knew personally, somebody I met personally. He was a funny guy, and he was a good dude when he was a good dude. Hell of a guitar player too. But he got mad at me one time because I used the word retarded. And he referred to it as the R word. Well, can't do that. I don't like the R word. For the record, if you haven't been reading the ticker tape at the top, I in fact do have cerebral palsy, and I know people who are physically handicapped and mentally handicapped as well. But anyway, I've been sitting around for the longest time thinking about doing these video essays, something. For the record, I do think that justice is coming. I think the wheels of justice are slowly turning. And everybody that has been wronged within at least the last 4 or 5 years in this country, if I were to be really honest, I'd say the last 8 or almost 9 years in this country, everybody that's been lied to, taken advantage of, manipulated, we will be vindicated. I think that is coming. Justice is coming. But I'm going to end this now because I have only a short amount of time on this platform. But I don't know, man. I want to do something. I don't know if these will get out to anybody. I don't know if they're gonna matter. Maybe they're just for me, just to sort of get some stuff out of my head and get it out of the way, kind of thing. But I'm gonna end here now. You all take care, and maybe I'll catch you another time.